UFOs can be explained, as I said before. Unfortunately, they've become synonymous with extraterrestrial spacecraft. But the majority, as I've said, up to 90%, can be explained, and included in the explainable ones are hallucinations, hoaxes, misidentifications are the most common, I would say. As far as the SETI program is concerned, there's relatively very little money spent on that. I visited Arecibo Radio Telescope, where they do conduct a SETI project there, and I spoke to the director of the telescope there, and he told me that they just spent a fraction of their time on the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They do all sorts of stuff for the military with that radio telescope there.
Well, Paul admitted to me he thinks it actually is going to be a fruitless search, and the reason for this is kind of simple. If you step back and try and put yourself in the shoes of an extraterrestrial intelligence, you're likely to be on the far side of the galaxy from us.
Yes.
And if they're at the point where they could actually somehow survive that several light years or multiple light year journey through space to reach here, their technology would probably make them enormous, machine-like, invisible, and utterly strange to us, and not strange fetus-like little creatures that seem to come out of some Freudian quirk of the imagination. What do you say to that?
Well, there's some truth in that. I mean, people fantasize about these beings, but it's interesting. When I was at Arecibo, the director of public affairs there said that he was convinced that it was, in a sense, a waste of time. And when eventually we do succeed in monitoring communications, it's more likely to be all sorts of signals that we don't understand beyond our normal radio range, things like that, and with races communicating with each other in ways that we couldn't possibly comprehend.
Once I was on a small charter flight from Kalgoorlie to Albany, I think in Western Australia, and there was only 4 of us on the plane, and I asked the pilot, we were going through the desert, I said, have you ever seen anything weird or interesting here on this plane? And he said, what do you mean, mate? And I said, well, anything like a UFO. And he got a bit quiet and he told me he'd been flying across the desert one night and he'd been chased by these dancing lights that were first on one side of the wing, then the other side of the wing, then they disappeared and he realised they were right behind the plane. They seemed to move very strangely and very, very quickly. Now, this guy was a no-nonsense sort of guy. No doubt you've heard thousands and thousands of stories similar to this. What is the nature of these craft? If indeed, I don't know what they are, but are they often playful, warlike?
Well, let's just talk about the ones that pilots see. They vary from exactly objects like that, which in the Second World War were referred to as Foo Fighters, an American nickname, even though very large, enormous craft were seen, unknown aircraft were seen during World War II. They range from the small ones to these large ones. For example, in 1986, Japan Airlines Jumbo cargo plane was on approach to Anchorage when they encountered an enormous object. There's a sketch by the captain in the book, and it's absolutely huge, a huge walnut-shaped object which was tracked on radar intermittently. And I've spoken to a number of pilots, including a Mirage 4 nuclear bomber commander in the French Air Force, who told me that a huge object, at least the size of a Boeing 747, paced his plane, which alarmed him and the navigator behind. And many other pilots have seen very large objects, solid.
Just in the moments we have left, Timothy Good, do you long to have a close encounter of your own?
I do indeed, yes. I would give anything almost to have a ride in a spacecraft. That would be tremendous.
Or even see one. Have you ever seen one?
Yes, I have had sightings, but I must say that nothing close up. I have had sightings, say about 4 in my life, and that's sort of averaging. I'm 64 now, so I don't know what the average is, but I go like a whole decade without seeing anything remotely strange, but I have seen some unexplainable things. If I can just quote, if there's time to quote Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Defence Minister in the Trudeau regime back in 1963. UFOs are as real as the airplanes that fly over your head. The classification was, from the outset, above top secret, so the vast majority of US officials and politicians, let alone a mere Allied Minister of Defence, were never in the loop. And that statement was made in Toronto University just last year.
Timothy Goodlook, thank you so much for your time this morning.